Hey guys, today let's take a quick snapshot of your own situation in your own life and see if there's any signs of insulin resistance. Today I just want to bust through a few key points on laboratories, behaviors, body feelings to see if there's any signs of insulin resistance for you. Because it's important to know this, because if you know that you are insulin resistant, you are more likely to make some changes in your life. Okay, so what is insulin resistance? Basically, it's a carbohydrate tolerant disorder. And that's really what it comes down to, is that your body can't handle breaking down carbohydrates. You get high blood sugar in your bloodstream, and it is the first step to being metabolically disordered. And the best way to put this is that if you are interested in being healthy, you cannot have insulin resistance. If you are in the business of being healthy, you cannot have insulin resistance. And if you have insulin resistance, you are not going to be healthy. And our culture is actually the easy button for our culture. The way our culture is designed is for everyone to eventually fall into insulin resistance. And so you have to wake up, you have to see if you have it, and then you have to be counterculture. And then that is one of my big goals for my own life and for me to express to the world, is that we have to understand how our body works. We have to understand what this world does to our body and what we're not supposed to do. And then we have to make micro decisions to change that. And so my hopes today is that I can educate you a little bit on getting your lab values and analyzing some things and being like, okay, I'm insulin resistant. What do I do now? Okay. So the first thing is a fasting blood sugar. A fasting blood sugar is in your complete metabolic panel, or your basic metabolic panel that you get in your lab work every year. And it's sitting right there. And generally speaking, it can fluctuate a little bit. It's usually between 70 and 100 is normal. If you're over 100, it's abnormal. But if you are at the higher end of normal, I personally think that that is a little bit of a slight little red flag that you should focus in on and be like, why is my blood sugar 95 or 96? Okay, so there are a few other steps that you could take to dig into this. And then one of them is to capture a fasting insulin level. Fasting insulin levels, I am going to say right now, are a little bit variable. It's not a one stop, like my insulin resistance, check an insulin level. It's not going to work like that, because fasting insulin levels can fluctuate a lot based on like your sleep, your stress, the medications, the time of day, etc. And so you have to be a little bit more, you have to take that with a grain of salt. But that being said, you can capture what's called a HOMA-IR score. And you could take your fasting blood sugar, your fasting insulin, divide that by 405, and it spits out this little quantitative score. That score, if you are less than 2, you're normal, you're good. If you're between 2 and 3, you do have insulin resistance or slight insulin resistance. And then if you're greater than 3, you have significant insulin resistance. And if you are in that 2 or 3 range, you need to stop and ask yourself, what am I doing now that I need to change? Because that trajectory in this culture, you are likely going to end up with diabetes. And diabetes is what we are trying to avoid. Okay, so the next one is a triglyceride to HDL ratio. This is also in your annual blood work. This comes in the lipid panel, or your cholesterols. If you have a high triglyceride and a low HDL, that high ratio is a risk factor for cardiovascular disease and also insulin resistance. And so the scores for this would be triglycerides to HDL ratio of less than 2 is ideal, it's low risk. If you're between 2 and 3.9 or 2 and 4, you're at moderate risk. And then if you're 4 or greater, you're at high risk for cardiovascular disease and insulin resistance. The last one I think is worth taking a peek at is actually uric acid. Now, traditionally, uric acid has been used for gout to measure the amount of uric acid in your body for gout levels. But to be honest, uric acid is picking up some traction to be a risk factor for cardiovascular disease, and is also a sign of insulin resistance. And so uric acid in your body in high amounts is it's like oxidative stress. It causes like endothelial injury or vessel injury, and it's just chronic inflammation. It's just steady inflammation in your body. And so there are a couple ways that I think are worth addressing with uric acid. One, uric acid can be elevated in situations that people consume a lot of high fructose corn syrup. Because of the way high fructose corn syrup is broken down in the body, it's in the liver, and there's a byproduct of uric acid when it's broken down. The other one is insulin. So if you have elevated insulin in your body, your insulin triggers your kidney to recapture the uric acid, and then you just accumulate. So if you have too much insulin in your body, then you're gonna potentially have too much uric acid, and you can measure that with your labs. So putting all this together, if you have a high fasting blood sugar, if you have a high uric acid, if you have a HOMA-IR score that's high, or you have a high insulin level, then these are some red flags that you could be like, okay, I think I might have a problem here. Other ones that you could look at that are just more outside of your labs are waist circumference. Fortunately, visceral fat is metabolically active, and so it does contribute to like a chronic increased state of inflammation, which contributes to insulin resistance. But also the cause of insulin resistance is just a vicious cycle because of the fat in your body, it causes inflammation, which causes insulin resistance, and which makes your body secrete more insulin. And insulin is a fat deposition hormone. I think that's worth repeating. Insulin is a fat deposition hormone, which means that the more insulin you have, your body is triggering for you to store fat. So high insulin makes you fat. Fat makes you inflamed. Inflammation makes you insulin resistant. It's a cycle, okay? So what are some other signs of insulin resistance? We talked about waist circumference, but what are some subjective symptoms that you feel? And this is a long laundry list, but I'm willing to bet that I go through this, you're gonna be like, oh, that's me. It's a lot of people, but brain fog and fatigue after meals, cravings for sugar and carbohydrates, especially late afternoon. You get shaky and irritable if you don't eat. You get energy crashes after high carb meals, and you have these mood swings. Now, some of the more concerning stuff that are pretty common, and I'll start with the women, is insulin resistance. One of the correlations that we see with this is women that have PCOS or polycystic ovarian syndrome. You have irregular periods. You often struggle with infertility. For both men and women, acne, even as adults, you struggle with acne. Thinning of your hair, oily skin. Skin tags is actually is a common one. If you're wanting to get a lot of skin tags, or you have a little bit of some obesity with that, those two together should make you think like, what's going on here. And then the belly fat, as I spoke of earlier. So there are more than this, but those are some of the more common ones. So how do we address this? I think this is important because if you're committed to this point now, you're probably invested. And so what do you need to do today if you are insulin resistant? And I'm telling you, it's baby steps. You are going to fall right back in where your habits tie, because we are habitual people. We do not operate 100% on our frontal lobe, and we are automated biological creatures. And you need to change that automation, and it starts with very small habits, and it starts with very small rewards to change the chemistry in your brain. Okay, so a couple things that I want to address. Fixing sleep is number one. A lot of people have a hard time with this. It's not something they can just turn on and off or make that decision. And so a lot of times I just recommend if you can, do it. But if you can't, let's just put it to the side for a minute. I think the easiest thing that you could do is that you can eliminate excessive carbohydrates, because this is a carbohydrate tolerance disorder. If you can shrink your carbohydrate load in your day-to-day, then this is the starting point for this. This should start to activate some energy. This should clear up some of that brain fog. This should make you happier. This should make you think clearer. If you get more energy, you're more likely to want to exercise or do things. And then if you exercise, you're more likely to be tired at the end of the day, and you're more likely to sleep better. Okay, so everything is connected. So start out in the morning, or your first meal of the day, whenever that is. Maybe it's lunch, maybe you skip breakfast, and that's okay. But start out in the morning, or your first meal, with heavy protein and fiber. And I want you to deconstruct the social stigma of what breakfast food is. Because it's not supposed to be cereal. It's not supposed to be toast. It's not supposed to be bagels. Eat leftover dinner of chicken breast and Brussels sprouts, or get yourself some whey protein and mix it up with some Greek yogurt and put some peanut butter and walnuts and blueberries and all that, and that should be a good starting point for you to immediately activate the satiety hormones in your body to project you through the day, so you are not spiking blood sugar up and down. You're getting a steady blood sugar throughout the day, and so you're less likely to crave carbohydrates. Okay, that's the first step. It's very easy. You're not restricting, you're adding. And I think that you should start with just doing that, and don't try to get rid of your vices. Don't try and get rid of your ice cream. Don't try and get rid of, your potato chips. Just start with the best meal you can in the morning on a regular basis. And what that will do over time, and this is macro, you have to do it every day for like 30 days. You might have some measurable change in the first day, but it has to be something that you do repeatedly. And over time, you're gonna start to get into this new habit, and you're not gonna crave those carbohydrates as much. You're not gonna consume as many calories. You're gonna be stabilized. And the second thing that I recommend is that you add water. Go grab yourself a water bottle, carry it with you everywhere, and try to drink as much water as you can. Because if you are thirsty, for some reason, your body craves the junk. It craves carbs, it craves sugar. It wants you to eat when you are actually just thirsty. You're just a little bit dehydrated. So add the protein, add the fiber, add the water. Don't try to fight the vices, because your willpower will fail. You will have moments where you will not want to follow your diet, and you're gonna have a stressful day, and you're just gonna wanna dig in, okay? And so that is not my recommendations, because you will fall off the bandwagon every time. So, to be honest, I think I babbled on enough here. I could go on and on, but I hope this is a good starting point for you. It is my strategy, and I think that it mixes in a decent amount of science, but also mixes in human behavior. And I think working those together will actually give you some results. So thank you for your time, and feel free to comment or direct message me, and I can answer any questions if you'd like. I am an open book, and I'm here to help. So thank you.